I'll try to bellow. My name is Mike Bondi. I'm the director at North Willamette Research and Extension Center, which is just up the road, obviously, from here. I'm sure many of you in the room have been there or know the facility pretty well. Been director there for the last 5 years. And Tom asked me to come forward this morning and just kind of give you a little update about Enwrap as a public resource for growers, caneberry growers, as well as all the other growers that we work with in the valley. And also update you on a couple of the key things going on there, at least in terms of staffing. So I'll do that, and if there's questions, obviously we'll answer them. First, let me kind of just, for those that aren't familiar with Enwrap or maybe our Ag Experiment Station network here in the state, my observation or what I would share is that we're still fortunate in Oregon to have the kind of research and development opportunity for all of agriculture that we have in this state, but frankly is going away in other states. It's a high-cost operation to run these research centers. I was standing in the back listening to some of the commentary and discussion about R&D as it relates to equipment, especially small-scale equipment, and the kind of problems and issues that are facing all of agriculture are obviously what we focus on and what the growers want us to focus on. The Research Experiment Station network in Oregon started over 100 years ago. So we've been around longer than most other agencies and organizations. We still have 13 different field centers around the state. That's more than many states as they've downsized. And part of that is obviously driven by geography, soils, climate, and all the different kind of crops that are grown. We at the North Willamette Research Extension Center at Aurora, we're the only center in the northwest corner of the state that's a farm. So we cover everything pretty much from the coast to Hood River, everything from the Columbia River down to Corvallis. And there's obviously a couple of research farms down at Corvallis that are kind of managed out of the university rather than a field station per se. And some of our stations, are very focused. You go to Pendleton and all they do is research on wheat there, which is obvious why they would do that. Or potatoes in Hermiston, or potatoes in K Falls. What's different about Enwrap is that we focus on specialty crops in the Willamette Valley, because that's obviously where we're at. And that portfolio is pretty broad. So we end up being the largest of all the research centers in the state. If you look at faculty and staffing, we're about double the size of every other station when it comes right down to it. And we're interacting with not just you all in the berry industry as one of our primary flagship kind of programs in research and outreach education. We're also the only station in the state that focuses on greenhouse and nursery. We're the only station in the state that focuses on Christmas trees. We're the station in the state that has the Pesticide Registration program, field center that Joe DeFrancisco runs. We also have a fresh market vegetable specialty seed program. We also have a small farms program. So we have a very, very diverse portfolio, and we've got it set up in teams of people, and obviously the leadership that Bernadine has provided for many years as the berry extension crop specialist and also the berry crop leader at North Willamette has been integral to not only addressing your kinds of problems, but building a team of people that have some capacity to kind of do the work that you need done. So it's an honor for me to be part of that. We have, I would say, if you want to stay in touch or know about the resources, if you're not familiar, that's what I produce 3 times a year. It's our Down on the Farm newsletter. I'll send some of those around. There's also a pile out on the table and a sign-up sheet for anybody that is interested. That kind of keeps you in touch a little bit with what we're doing, the kind of programs and the impacts that we're having in the community. We also have a website, if you haven't accessed that. We're just getting a Facebook page up and running. Bernadine will talk, I'm sure, in a few minutes or mention sometime today the very field days that she's got coming up. We have a variety of educational activities and programs that meet the needs, again, hopefully of the growers. I wanted to touch mostly about the fact that we've been through a transition too, like all you have. The last several years in the economy has not been pretty for business and industry in this state, and it sure hasn't been pretty for those of us that rely on public funding to provide the kind of resources to drive the answers to the questions we have. This really, for us in Oregon, frankly, started in 2003. For those of you that remember back that many years, we went through a terrible downturn in the economy. And for us at the university and our public statewide services, that's extension and our ag experiment stations, we lopped off 25% of our organization. And to this day now, 13 years later, we're still kind of in recovery mode, quite frankly, and trying to fill some vacancies that occurred over that period of time and try to bring our capacity up to what people say they want. The last legislative session, that would have been last summer, not the short one that just ended, but the last full session in 2015, added to our budgets the first significant increase since the late 1990s. So this state has not invested pretty heavily in funding the kind of services that we're talking about here today. It's been pretty much a flat line or a declining line. So with that, the good news is that we're finally restoring some of the key positions that we haven't had available. In particular, right now we've had a Nursery Research Leader position at Enwrap that's been vacant for 5 years. That's a pretty key position. Don't forget that nursery is like the largest sector of agriculture in the state. It was the first billion-dollar farm gate crop. That was back prior to the recession and the crash in 2007, 2008. As I'm listening to the conversation, you should be aware that not only are we filling that position, the national search just, the most recent one, just ended the end of February. Candidate pool's been selected, and in that preliminary pool, we've got an interesting mix of people, including one person who's basically an engineer. So we're trying to address the needs of the nursery industry, which frankly aren't unlike the needs in the caneberry industry or the Christmas tree industry. What's the number one problem that most people are concerned about? It's called labor. It's called, mechanization. It's called how are we going to remain profitable. And when I think of what we do, it's really based on three things at our research extension centers. It's number one, trying to figure out how to keep agriculture profitable, how to increase production, and the two are obviously related. And the third thing is how to do a better job of managing the environment. So everything we do should be focused on that. So as we go forward, we don't know that we're going to select somebody that's an engineer, but the nursery folks are looking. That may be a resource that we've never frankly had at the research center. And it may help address some of these issues that you're interested in as well. So we've got that position going forward. The university is hiring about 20 people just in college of ag sciences and research and extension right now based on this funding that came through the legislature last fall. So it's a very busy time in filling positions and getting search committees going. We have 2 more searches, so we intend on adding 3 positions this year. We added 1 last fall. That was our tree orchard crops hazelnut position. So that's huge for us. I mean, that's like right now I've got 8 faculty that are resident faculty research extension at the research center. We're going to be adding 4 more. Or the equivalent of 4 more in this year period. So that's huge for us. The other positions that we're moving forward with right now is also a vegetable specialty crop extension position. That's one that's being hired with the new funding from the legislature last summer. That position's been vacant for 3.5 years. And obviously most of the vegetables, fresh market vegetables that we all enjoy, like on our tables and in the grocery stores, where does it come from? It comes from the Willamette Valley. So it's a critical position for not just agriculture, but everybody in this state. And then the third position, and one that I know many of you are interested in, is the IR4, or the Pesticide Registration Research position. That's Joe DeFrancesco. Joe's been with us for many, many years, but he has decided that he's going to retire at the end of this year. And so we've been trying to figure out how to handle that. What most people don't realize is that the entire funding for not just Joe, his salary and the things that go with salary, but also all the people that work with him, and he has 2 full-time people at North Willamette, as well as another half-time person at North Willamette and a half-time person down on campus. So the equivalent of Joe and 3 more people, all fully funded, salary, everything, plus all the work they do in their program to identify the label needs and do the research to get the kind of labels that you need. That's all grant funded. There isn't one state dollar really involved in that. And so when Joe walks out the door, the challenge is who will write the grants and the contracts to keep this going. And he's raising somewhere in the vicinity of $250,000 to $350,000 a year, just depending on what the needs of the industries are. And it's just not you folks, obviously, it's everything in the state, really, from tree orchard crops in Hood River to cranberries out in the bogs on the coast, to all the berries, the nursery crops, you name it, he's involved in all that. So we're going forward with a search for that position to try to get a couple of months of transition time before Joe walks out the door officially, full-time walks out the door, so that we can get a new person up and hopefully able to do the kind of work that needs to be done, but also raise the kind of funding that's needed as well. So that position will be going forward. That's our next hire that we'll initiate hopefully by the end of this month, 1st of April. You'll see something on the street. It'll be a national search. And with that will come hopefully some really top quality candidates from somewhere here, either in this region or around the country. And then we'll get somebody in the door as soon as we can cut the deal.
Why don't we hold questions? There's got a bunch of stuff to get through, so.